versus national security, the Patriot Act, is poised to, well, rage on. My next guest has vowed to protect Americans' constitutional rights to privacy, vehemently leading the charge against the NSA's bulk data programming, including the last night on the Senate floor. Watch this.
One of the things about the Fourth Amendment that was the biggest part of the Fourth Amendment for our founding fathers was that a warrant should be individualized. General warrants were what we fought the revolution over. I came here to defend the Bill of Rights and to defend the Constitution, popular or not, but I frankly think that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution are very popular, very important, and I will continue as long as I have breath and as long as I'm here to defend them.
All right, here now is the author of the brand new book, Taking a Stand, Moving Beyond Partisan Politics to Unite America. 2016 Republican presidential candidate, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, let's take a look and put up on the screen the Fourth Amendment to our Constitution. It's very clear. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, be upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the things and the persons or things to be seized. What Jim Sensenbrenner is describing, this controversial Section 215, was not what the Patriot Act allowed for, but yet he says it's happening. Our electronic communications have been taken without consideration of civil liberties. Is that your biggest concern?
Yes, the other concern is that this is illegal. The court has said it's illegal, and yet President Obama continues to collect these records despite the court telling him that it's illegal. And it's funny how you get this deflection from the president. The president always wants to blame somebody else. So right now he's blaming us in Congress for not doing what needs to be done, but the whole program started with the president and is in defiance of what Congress said. So you're right, the Patriot Act does not allow for this collection of illegal records, and yet the president's doing it anyway. So the good success that will come out of this week, and I hope this will be a success in the sense that I've spent a lot of time talking about this, is that from now on the president will not be allowed to collect any records and store them in the form of a general warrant. It would have to be individualized, and it'll have to go through the phone companies.
Are you going to support the USA Freedom Act, which would then allow the phone companies to store the data, and then it would take a court order to get this information that they then have stored? Is that acceptable to you?
I support the Freedom Act in ending the bulk collection of the government records. I am still a little bit fearful that we may be replacing bulk collection by the government with bulk collection and searching at the phone companies. I would like it to be completely individualized, where when we look at phone records, we look at the phone records of terrorists, but we don't look at the phone records of large groups of people. The USA Freedom Act will still allow a corporation to be searched, and if that corporation were Verizon or AT&T, we might be right back where we started. So I still have concerns, but I am complimentary of those like Congressman Sensenbrenner and Senator Lee and Senator Leahy, who have pushed for ending government collection.
It's funny, there's very weird coalitions emerging here, because in a post-9/11 world, we've got to be concerned about national security. We have radical Islamic enemies that want another 9/11 or worse to occur in this country. But this act specifically prohibited what's going on right now, and that's where my concern is, especially in a day and age where the IRS would abuse its power and target conservative groups. Would they use this information for some type of nefarious purpose against an individual citizen? Is that your concern?
Yes, very much so. And there have also been times in our history when we used general warrants and we were indiscriminate. When we incarcerated the Japanese Americans in World War II, when we eavesdropped on civil rights protesters. So there have been times when we've made mistakes, but I want it to be very clear. I want to look at the records of terrorists. I just want the warrants to be individualized. I would much rather look at more records of terrorists, but less records of innocent Americans.
Let's look at some of the criticism. It has been sharp. It has been almost universal from fellow Republicans. Let me show you some of them.
I think Senator Paul is doing a disservice to the country when he makes these charges. He's making the CIA and the NSA the enemy.
I think that folks like those who are arguing against this have a severe case of amnesia of what this country felt like and what we experienced in the days after September 11th.
Do you think Senator Paul has amnesia or a deep-seated ideology that fears the power of the state, or both?
I think both.
I think he's wrong. I don't understand why, if it's going to happen on Wednesday or Thursday, he doesn't allow it to happen today. It is simply putting Americans at risk for a political reason. I think it's wrong, and I think it's unfortunate.
What's your reaction to that? Because I know for myself, I supported the Patriot Act. I want the NSA, CIA, and FBI doing their job. I want you to respond to that.
Well, what I would do, the first thing, if you want to hear the other side, you got to get outside the Beltway. I've been traveling the country, and everywhere I go, we have large crowds of people. A lot of young people think that it's wrong for the government to indiscriminately collect all of our bulk records. The courts have said it's illegal. So I frankly think what I've been arguing for is actually quite popular among Americans outside of the Washington establishment.
If they follow the Patriot Act as it was written, and we just spoke with its author, I don't see that there's a problem here. Let me move on to another issue where I do disagree with you. It's a statement that you made on NBC. Let me play it, and we'll talk about it.
ISIS exists and grew stronger because of the hawks in our party who gave arms indiscriminately, and most of those arms were snatched up by ISIS. These hawks also wanted to bomb Assad, which would have made ISIS's job even easier. They created these people. ISIS is all over Libya because these same hawks in my party loved Hillary Clinton's war in Libya. They just wanted more of it.
Senator George W. Bush warned with pinpoint accuracy what would happen if we pulled out of Iraq without providing intelligence and training for Iraqi forces, or in the case of Syria, when the president draws a red line in the sand, it doesn't follow through. I'm not sure why you're blaming hawks in the party, because I was one of them. I supported the Iraq war for all the reasons that every intelligence agency in the world thought was real intelligence. I'm not sure why you're blaming your fellow conservatives.
Well, I think ultimately, I could have maybe stated it a little bit better. What I would say is that the ultimate people who are responsible for terrorism are obviously the terrorists. So ISIS is responsible for the mayhem, the murders, the brutality, the beheadings. That's ISIS. But I would say that we can have a valid discussion over whether or not ISIS has grown stronger by pouring arms into the Islamic rebels in the Syrian civil war. As we did, even our ambassador said that we will be giving arms to people who will fight alongside al-Qaeda and alongside ISIS. And it is objective truth that ISIS grew stronger the more weapons that went into the Syrian civil war. So I think it was an unintended consequence that ISIS grew stronger because of weaponizing these Islamic rebels in Syria.
But you misspoke when you said hawks, conservatives in the party, created ISIS. You disagree with that now?
What I would say is that this was the policy of President Obama. It was a policy of Hillary Clinton. And it was also the policy of some in my party who wanted to arm the Islamic rebels. And I warned at the time that the great irony is that you arm these people, one day we'll have to go back and fight against these weapons ourselves. And I do think we have to do something about ISIS. I've been for declaring war against ISIS, but I've been disappointed that we have to fight against our own weapons. And I think had we not put those weapons into that civil war, we might not be in this fix at this point.
I have a funny feeling that debate is going to continue. Thank you, Senator, for being with us. We appreciate your time. Coming up, the debate.